Another day, a friend who worked as a chef in New York told me, "You make money there, but you don't live." He worked 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. The system is simple. The more you work, the more you earn. And that's New York's paradox, the city that never sleeps, where opportunities are endless, but living costs more than you can afford. The average apartment rental exceeds $3,800 per month. It's the lowest vacancy rate in 50 years. Despite promises, public policies that aim to solve this problem often make things worse. How can one of the wealthiest and most influential cities in the world fail to provide something as basic as decent housing? With a minimum wage of $16 per hour, someone would have to work every single day, 8 hours a day, just to cover rent. No food, no transportation, no life. Yet even finding a place to live feels like winning the lottery. Only 1.4% of New York apartments were available for rent in 2023. This forces thousands into illegal apartments, like basements, which often become deadly traps. In 2021, Hurricane Ida brought torrential rains that flooded the city's sewage system, resulting in 13 deaths, 11 of which were people living in such illegal units. How did we get here? In the 1970s, New York faced bankruptcy. A massive economic crisis caused hundreds of thousands to flee, leaving entire neighborhoods abandoned. Buildings stood empty. Today, the story is different. New York is once again the center of the world, but its rapid growth has outpaced housing availability. Jobs and population have surged, but housing hasn't kept up. This leaves people like Rosanna Glasgow, who works at JFK Airport's security line, stuck in difficult situations. She shares a $2,600 apartment with her mother and brother, where the heating doesn't work, and the landlord refuses to fix it. She's tried to move but can't find anything under $3,600, more than she can afford. Rosanna's story is part of a bigger picture. 500,000 families spend more than half their income just on rent. The situation worsens for Black and Latino communities, who face lower incomes and higher economic segregation. The median income for renting families in New York is $70,000 annually, which means a fair rent shouldn't exceed $1,750 per month, according to government guidelines. However, average rents in Manhattan or Brooklyn are twice that amount. Even so-called affordable housing is far from accessible. In Long Island City, a 2-bedroom affordable apartment costs $4,434 per month, which is more than half the annual income of a typical family. The gentrification of neighborhoods like Williamsburg and Brooklyn has further driven up costs, pushing out local communities. These areas, once havens for artists and workers, have become luxury showcases, complete with expensive cafes and glass condominiums. Even professionals earning $100,000 a year often find themselves sharing rooms well into their 30s, working tirelessly and barely scraping by. The question is housing cost the only problem in New York, or is there more to this story? Summers in New York are unbearable. The heat, combined with humidity, makes the streets almost impassable, particularly in poorer neighborhoods where concrete dominates. This heat retention creates urban heat islands, where temperatures remain dangerously high even at night. For vulnerable residents, not having air conditioning can be fatal. Every year, 350 people die in New York due to extreme heat, most of them elderly or low-income families. Proposed solutions, like requiring landlords to maintain internal temperatures below 25.5 degrees Celsius, seem fair but raise questions about feasibility. The outdated electrical systems in many older buildings would require costly upgrades, and landlords have made it clear that these expenses would ultimately be passed on to tenants. When winter arrives, the struggles shift. Antiquated heating systems leave apartments freezing, forcing families to sleep in coats and hats. Summers bring cockroaches. Winters bring rats. The city's infrastructure can no longer keep up with its needs. Temporary solutions, such as redistributing used air conditioners or offering government subsidies for low-income families, address symptoms but not the root cause. The fundamental issue remains: old buildings, obsolete infrastructure, and tenants trapped in an unsustainable system. The Local Law 18, introduced in September 2023, aimed to alleviate housing shortages by targeting short-term rentals on platforms like Airbnb. The idea was simple: reduce tourist rentals to free up housing for New Yorkers. Listings on Airbnb dropped by 82%, but long-term rents didn't decrease. In fact, average rents in New York rose by over 3% in 2024. Small landlords who often relied on renting out parts of their homes for extra income suffered the most under the strict regulations, which required properties to meet stringent standards. Ultimately, the housing crisis in New York is not about Airbnb or other short-term rental platforms. The issue is a lack of sufficient housing. While the real estate market is treated as a financial asset for speculation, the workers who keep the city running are left with few options. Without addressing these systemic issues, the city risks losing the very people who make it function. New York stands at a crossroads, and its ability to address these challenges will define its future. What do you think would solve New York's housing crisis? Share your thoughts in the comments.